Hi friends, welcome back to Brilliant Blue Reviews. My name is Heather, and in today's video, I'm going to be giving you my review of the movie The Materialists. Okay, this is an A24 production, and A24 has kind of gained a reputation for independent filmmaking, but they're getting more popular. So more people are going to see movies by this production company, and they've made some pretty good ones. It's written and directed by Celine Song. You might know her from Past Lives, is a previous movie that she did. And she bases this movie on her own personal experience working as a matchmaker in New York City. This movie stars Dakota Fanning, Chris Evans, and Pedro Pascal. It's set in New York City in the modern day or present day. My daughter and I both went to this movie at the same time. We saw it on Tuesday, June 17th. I saw it here at home in our town, and she saw it in a neighboring state. So we watched it basically at the same time, and then we called each other afterwards and discussed it. So I'm including her opinions and her thoughts into this review. She's in her early 20s. She pointed out that even though it's set in the present day, except for one reference they make to, and it's in the same sentence, they mention TikTok and OnlyFans. There's nothing else in the movie itself that would really place it in any particular time of like modern day. So she pointed out that it's really kind of timeless, which she liked, and I would agree with that. The movie is rated R. The main reason I think that the movie is rated R is probably language, and then second to that would be basically like just adult themes. There's some implied sexual content, but there's nothing graphic shown or anything like that. But there are a whole bunch of other things, like people are kissing, people are smoking, quite a bit actually. People are drinking. They mention and discuss drug use. They talk about some interesting surgeries, and just the adult themes and the content of the movie, which I'll get more into in a little bit, is pretty adult. So this is definitely not a movie for kids. This is an adult movie. It's not a light romantic comedy. I would not take my 13 or 14-year-old daughter to this. Definitely not. I would say you really probably need to be 17 and up to not only be able to handle the topic of this movie, but be able to fully understand it and comprehend what they're talking about. And so that's the first thing I want to tell you right away is the marketing for the movie kind of makes it out like this is a romantic comedy. It's really not. I can think of 2, maybe 3 actual, maybe kind of I chuckled a little bit, okay, moments, funny moments, very few. Overall, the movie is very serious. It's quite dark, actually. It starts out very shallow and quite cynical. I actually was at a point, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes in or something, where I was so dismayed by how shallow and cynical it was that I almost felt like walking out, like getting up and leaving. Like I didn't know if I could sit through it. So you need to be prepared for that. It's not going to be a light, happy, fluffy, romantic comedy. It's not at all. It's a very dark, serious movie. It's worth it, okay? So I'm glad I didn't walk out. I will tell you that there were tears streaming down my face at the end of the movie, and I cried for a significant amount of time in my car afterwards. Now, the reason I was crying and the reason I was so emotionally affected by this movie is personal. Not everybody's going to have that same reaction to it, but I will tell you that it was very personal for me, and it really impacted me greatly emotionally. In the end, both Megan and I, despite what I said about how 20 minutes in I felt like walking out, in the end, both Megan and I give this movie 5 stars. Now, I haven't watched it yet, but I watch a couple of other YouTubers, Jeremy Johns and The Awards Contender, are my 2 favorites. They both do movie reviews, and I haven't watched it yet. It's on my watch later list, but The Awards Contender has a video that he just did a couple days ago reviewing this movie, and he said that it's a masterpiece. And I kind of agree. It's really a well-done film. I almost kind of want to see it again to get past my emotions and to catch all the other things about it that make it really great. The basic premise of the plot is Dakota Johnson is in her late 30s and she's single and living in New York City, and she works as a professional matchmaker for this matchmaking firm called Adore. She's matching clients up, and at the beginning, they're celebrating her 9th couple that she's successfully matched that's getting married, and she goes to the wedding and everything. And she meets Pedro Pascal's character at the wedding. He's actually the brother of the groom. And they begin a pretty serious relationship throughout a good chunk of the movie. And it never really sits right with me. And I don't think it's supposed to sit right with the viewer, because it's not right, and you figure out why. In the course of her job and the things that they show about her job, it starts out like kind of light, no, isn't this fun and everything. And there's a particular type of scene that they do twice that I thought was really effective in showing the contrast from how she feels and how she approaches her job at the beginning of the movie and how she feels and approaches her job later on in the movie. And it's like this quick cycle through of where she's sitting like in a restaurant or something, and she's talking with her clients, and she has both male and female clients. And she's talking about, you know, their hopes and expectations and what they're looking for in a partner and all of this. And at the beginning, she's just like a pro at this. And she's so smooth. And she's telling everyone, you know, that they're going to meet and marry the love of their life. And everything's going to work out great. And she's really building them up and everything. And in the second scene that's like that, where they go through all these clients really fast, her tone has completely and totally changed, and she's much more realistic, and she realizes that there's a lot of fault with this matchmaking business that she's involved in. There's a very key event that I'm not going to spoil in this review. Something very serious happens with one of her clients that really changes her whole outlook and perspective on the process of matchmaking. So there's that whole side of it there, and that's the thing I think that Celine Song is taking from her own experience, is the matchmaking stuff. In addition to that, the other big part of the movie is her relationship with Chris Evans' character. His name is John. I can't remember what her name is. Her character's name. But when she's at that wedding that she matched the people up and she meets Pedro Pascal's character, whose name is Harry, he asks her if he can get her a drink, and he asks her what she wants. And you might have seen this in the previews. And she says a beer and a Coke, which is a really weird thing to order, right? But as soon as she says it, one of the waiters comes up and sets down a beer and a Coke. And she's looking at Harry thinking, how the heck did you do that? But then she turns and looks up at the waiter, and it's John. It's Chris Evans' character. And you find out through the course of the movie that they had a very serious relationship for, it sounds like, about 5 years in their 20s, okay? And a key thing, and this is where the title comes in, is that they were always broke. They never had any money. And the cynical part of the movie is that she says right at the outset that the most important thing to her in finding a life partner or a husband is they have to be wealthy. They have to be rich. She says it over and over and over again. And I was really turned off by that at the beginning. I was like, what the heck, you know? And she tells Pedro Pascal, you don't want to date me. She tells Harry, you don't want to date me because the next guy I date is the one I'm going to marry. And he kind of takes that on as a challenge. Now, his character is in finance, and he's very, very wealthy. And like when they go to his apartment the first time, she asks him how much was this apartment. He says it was $12 million. So it seems very shallow and materialistic, and I think that's kind of the point that the director is making. You know, and she talks all about these characteristics when she's matching people up. Similar political views, similar family background, similar education. They meet up on attractiveness, stuff like that. And I kept thinking, they kept having all these conversations about those things, those qualities. And I kept thinking to myself, that doesn't have anything to do with who they are as a person. that doesn't tell you anything about their heart or their soul and how they're going to treat you and how you're going to be with each other. And all of that stuff is really important. She has to realize that. She has to realize that that's the stuff that's important. That all these other check the boxes things, and they actually say that in the movie where you check off the boxes. And both her reconnection with John, her past love, and this very significant, serious thing that happens to one of her clients makes her realize that that's what's important. That it's the character of a person, and that it's their heart, and it's their soul, and it's how they treat you. That's what matters. And all that surface stuff in the matchmaking business is just surface. And so it's pretty deep and kind of heavy, actually. And then the story itself between her and John, I mean, if you see the movie, you'll see it for yourself. It's not going to have anywhere near as much meaning to most people as it does to me. They're coming back together and reconnecting after many years apart. And the things that they realize about how they feel about each other was very impactful to me. I actually related more to Chris Evans' characters. It was just, gender switched. But Chris Evans has a couple of really cool lines in there that oh my gosh, it just pierced me. That's all I really want to give away about the plot and the story of the movie. But you just have to go in there realizing that this is pretty dark and pretty serious and pretty impactful and emotional. And it's not going to be light. You're not going to be laughing out loud or anything like that. Some other things, though, that make the movie really great, and why I think that, I'm guessing that, when I watched the awards contender video, why he's saying it's a masterpiece, is there's so many other elements to the direction of the movie that are absolutely terrific. One on top, obviously, is the acting. The acting is really, really good. I think this is the best thing I've ever seen Dakota Fanning do, and I was really pleased with her performance in this. I was very pleased with the performance of Chris Evans in this. I mean, he really, wow. And it was really good. The acting was terrific. And then there's a couple of secondary characters, one being this key client that she has that something happens with. Her acting was so good. And this seems like a really simple detail, but when she's in a really emotional, troubled state, that client, Lucy, that's her name. The character's name is Lucy, Dakota Fanning's character. Lucy's talking with her at two different points in the movie. And one of the things that the director either purposely put in or left in was when the actress who was playing the client, she breathed like you breathe when you're upset, or you breathe when something's too much, or you breathe when something is too hard, or you're going to cry, or you are crying. And that was in there. And I don't know if I've ever seen that in a movie before, where they have that breath like that. And it really struck me. I thought that was really important to have it in there and to show, because it shows how she feels. That one breath more than anything she says. And so the acting was really, really well done. And then the cinematography, Megan said, oh my gosh, and she's right. There were a couple times where just a shot, a scene, the lighting, just something about how she put it together, it was great. I mean, it was really good. And you got to see it, And then the other thing was the quiet and the music. Now, it starts out actually silent. And it starts out not in New York City in the present day. It starts out in a very different place. And both Megan and I said, and I'm sure I kind of felt it from the other people around me in the movie theater, because it was packed. It was $5 day and everybody was going, and the movie theater was pretty busy at the beginning of the movie, and then they return to it at the end, which ties it together very nicely. It's a totally different place and a totally different setting and different people. And you're like, what the heck? Am I in the right movie? You literally don't think you're in the right movie. It seems like completely out of place. Like, this isn't how this movie should be starting. What is going on here? But then you wait a minute and you're like, oh, I see. You got to really pay attention to that. at the beginning and at the end. And it reflects and ties together how the characters in the movie, how Lucy and John change. And it's cool. But the movie is very quiet. It's almost uncomfortably quiet. They use music very purposefully and very judiciously. It seemed like there was hardly any music in it at all. It seemed like there were very few songs. Like I could count on one hand how many songs were in the movie. But at the end, when we watched the credits, both Megan and I noticed that there were actually a lot of songs. And we were kind of struck by that, like, wow, you didn't even really notice the music so much in this, except in a couple of key places. One is like right at the end. But the choices they made with sound were really powerful. There was a lot of silence and a lot of quiet, and then the very selective use of music. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and a lot of people aren't going to get it. So I'll warn you about that. I don't know that this is a very good date night movie. Okay, this isn't like something you want to go to on a first date for sure. This is something I wished that the person that I'm thinking of, that the story of these characters reminds me of, I wished that he had been there with me watching the movie, because I think it would have been as impactful for him as it was for me. But for a lot of guys, I think especially, they got to be pretty in touch with their emotions to appreciate this movie and understand everything about it. But I did really like it. It started out rough for me. Like I was really not sure at all. I was like, oh, this is going to be a big fail. Total thumbs down, but it wasn't. It was really, really well done. I'm very pleased with it. The Materialists, both me and my daughter, give it 5 stars. And it's in theaters now. If this review gave you information that was helpful to you, or you enjoyed it at all or appreciated it, I would really appreciate if you would give me a thumbs up for this video. And if you don't want to miss any of my upcoming movie reviews or book reviews when I get back to them, or sometimes I do theater reviews, television, all of that, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss any of my upcoming content. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video today. I'll be back soon with another one. There's lots of movies coming out really quickly here in June and July, so I'll have a lot more movie reviews coming. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you next time.